Many people judge others based on appearances, but what is someone to do if their clothes are worn out and there isn't enough money to buy new ones? What if they don't even have a place to live? What is one to do when the whole world is turned against them, but they still need to survive? Many people who are left without a home choose to give up. They find themselves without a livelihood and can't find the strength to persevere. At this point, they even refuse help, thinking there is no way out. But not the hero of today's story. The story that I will tell you today will make many people think, because so many people who have a roof over their head, a warm bed, and clean clothes take it all for granted, just going through the motions each day. Paulo Morris Young found himself in a very difficult situation. One day, something in his life went wrong, and he was left without a home, car, or job. He quickly developed the appearance of a bum and was shunned by everyone. When you live in a home, you don't even think about things like a daily shower or the ability to wash your clothes because it's just second nature. But when you live on the street, it becomes a real struggle. Paulo had to wash in public restrooms and somehow rinse his clothes, then put them back on wet because there was nowhere to dry them. Therefore, he was never able to get rid of the constant stench. To make matters worse, he had a little daughter to take care of and support. The most difficult thing for the man was that he could not find a job in order to improve his financial situation. Every potential employer immediately turned him away due to his untidy appearance. Out of desperation, he applied for every possible position, no matter how low the pay was, in hopes of finding something. And one day, he got lucky. He was given a part-time trial period at the Pratt & Whitney aerospace plant. The man simply could not believe his luck. The only downside was that the plant was located very far from where he had settled. It was here that he knew which restaurants threw away the freshest leftovers on which days, where the best restrooms were to wash up, and where he could find a quiet place to sleep. From here, it would take Paulo as long as 3 hours to get to the plant. The 6-hour round trip meant he lost quite a bit of sleep, but he never complained. Paulo was a very diligent worker. He was afraid that he might be fired for even the slightest offense, so he worked hard. The management was very pleased with his work. He got along with his colleagues from the first day, but there was one thing that bothered everyone. Paulo Morris always smelled very bad. Despite the fact that every morning after having arrived at the plant, he would immediately go to the restroom to wash up, the deeply ingrained smell of sweat and dirty clothes, which he never changed, was very difficult to remove. His colleagues at first joked about this, but over time they began to get seriously worried. Being on the same shift with Paulo Morris meant smelling that stench all day long. People even lost their appetite and their productivity decreased. One day they decided to write a collective complaint against him. No one wanted to endure the stench any longer. Only one of the colleagues suggested that they should first talk with Paulo and find out why he didn't bathe or whether he even realized that his stench was torturing his coworkers. Paulo Morris was very ashamed to admit it, but he found the courage to tell his colleagues his story. He had nowhere to live. He had to wash in the bathroom, clean his clothes, and put them back on while they were still wet. It was such a long distance to work, and that increased the amount of time that he sweat in his clothes each day. Paulo believed that the complaint would cause him to get fired, and he was already preparing himself for this, but the reaction he got from his colleagues took him by surprise and brought tears to his eyes. His coworkers did write a letter to their boss, Kelly Johnston, but in this letter they detailed the man's situation and asked to somehow resolve the issue. To the surprise of Paulo Morris, Kelly did not fire him, and she did not even reprimand him, but instead she offered to jointly rent an apartment for him near the plant so that he would no longer have to spend so much time walking to work, and he would have access to a real shower. Kelly also transferred Paulo to a full-time position so that he could receive a higher salary. For the next few weeks, all of his coworkers helped out as much as they could. Someone brought him homemade food, someone gave him hygiene products, someone brought clothes, someone brought household items. Together, they were able to provide Paulo Morris a new way of life. One can only imagine how the poor man felt at that moment. He did not expect that someone would treat his problem with understanding, and even more, help him finally get out of poverty. He changed right before everybody's eyes. No one could recognize in this neat man that foul-smelling homeless man. 2 months later, Kelly promoted him to a very high position. The new salary allowed Paulo Morris to pay for his own rent, and over time, he even bought himself a car and moved his daughter to his new home. We are happy to hear that this man did not give up. All he needed was just a little support, a little help from those who were around him so that he could get out of his poverty and very quickly rise to the very top. Of course, many people refuse help on their own, but if suddenly you meet someone in need along your way, what will you do at that moment? Would you help or walk away? Share your opinion in the comments.